What? Problems with the T7? Surely that can't be right. That CP2 engine is the most reliable motorcycle engine in the history of man. Well, I was out riding the other day. And the damn thing didn't want to rev past 6,000 RPM. I'm blasting up a hill, as you can see in this footage. Tapped, it's a nice smooth hill, it's not that steep, should be able to pin it in third gear. This thing just wouldn't rev past 6,000 RPM, 6 to 7,000. It should just about double that, no worries. Tried it a couple of times, tried in second gear. Everywhere it just would not rev past 6,000 under load. Alright, now before we go any further, let me just say this video turned out to be a bit of a schmozzle. Things aren't always what they seem, especially when you're trying to diagnose a problem like this that's kind of a little bit intermittent. If you're just watching this video for the entertainment value, that's fine. If you happen to be having the same problem with your T7, I suggest that you watch right to the end before acting on anything you see in this video because, yeah, as I said, things are not what they seem. Anyway, with that said, let the schmozzle begin. So luckily for me, one of my esteemed patrons is actually the world famous Kalani bike whisperer. Shout out to Stu, good on you man. So I jumped on the good old Facebook Messenger and said, Stu, what's going on? Bike won't rev past 6,000. First things he typed back, fuel filter. So I'm like, okay, he sounds pretty confident. So we get on to the Yamaha OEM parts list and what do you know, you can't buy a fucking fuel filter for the T7 separately. They will, however, happily take $520 off you for a whole new fuel pump assembly. So the bike whisperer Stuart, mad dog that he is, jumps on the internet, starts cross-referencing some part numbers and shit, finds a few other bikes that use the same fuel pump and located a filter. In fact, he happened to have one there in his shop, which he said, hey, I'm sticking one in an express post bag, going down posting it right now. I'm like, whoa, how cool is that? What a freaking legend. It's just what those Kiwi boys are like, eh? So currently I am waiting for that filter to rock up in the mail. It was actually on Friday that he posted it. It's now Monday. It should be here today, hopefully. In the meantime, I have pulled the bike apart, tanks off and everything. And while I was waiting, I couldn't ride on the weekend. Obviously, I had it all apart. So I thought I might as well jump on the internet, have a bit of a Google, see if anybody else is having the same problems. Found something on some MTO7 forums. Some guy had put iridium spark plugs in his MTO7 and started having similar problems, not exactly the same, but I thought, hey, you know, while I'm waiting, why not change out my spark plugs, because I had put iridiums in mine as well about 20,000 kilometers ago. They're supposed to be good for 30 to 40,000, I think. The bike now has 29,000 in total on it. So I happen to have the original plugs that I'd taken out there. Now they are non-iridium ones. I took those out at about 10,000 Ks and they're supposed to be good for about 20. So I thought, you know, I don't know why I still had them laying around, but anyway. I'll put those back in, and if you are familiar with what it's like changing the plugs on a T7, then you'll know that me and this bike had some quality bonding time doing that. I think I've got it down pat now, because I've actually, I went for a ride with the old plugs in and it was pretty much exactly the same, so that's not the problem. It wasn't the spark plugs. I'll put the iridiums back in. Foolish, I know, but it was really quite easy the second time. So that's the third time in total now that I've changed out those spark plugs. I've got the wiring and stuff now zip tied into a way that I can easily get those coils out without any dramas. I did a video on this mod where you remove a piece of plastic here to make the spark plug access easier. That's on my other channel. But there was a few people in the comments saying, there's no way, mate, that you can get those coils out without removing or loosening off the ABS unit. Like, yeah, I can. I did it. I've now done it 3 times. I have not touched the ABS. You don't need to. As long as you get those wires in the right spot, you can get it out. Anyway, I'm rambling about shit that doesn't matter. It wasn't the spark plugs waiting for a fuel filter to rock up. I've had the fuel tank here apart, or the fuel pump out already. I've just loosely reassembled it so I can show you guys how to get to the fuel filter if you need to do it. It is very easy, but yeah, I'll show you guys that now. Shouldn't take too long. Obviously I don't know yet if the fuel filter is the problem. Stu was pretty confident, so you know, I'm pretty confident that he's right, and I did send him a photo of the dirty filter and he said, yeah, that filter's fucked. So we'll see. We'll know by the end of this video if that was the problem. If not, we'll just keep going until we find out what it was. But firstly, to remove the fuel pump, I mean, I'm not going to show you how to take the tank off the bike. If you haven't done that before, then you know, find a video on how to take it off. It's pretty easy, but we'll start with the pump. Hopefully that's in focus. So we need a 4mm Allen key to remove the pump itself. Obviously, you know, get as much fuel out of the tank first before you do this as you can. Now the other thing that I was thinking, maybe I'd got some dodgy fuel. I did fill up with 95 from the local servo. That one will be pretty easy to rule out. Okay, so once you've got those 4 bolts out, as Stuart said, take photos of everything so you know what you're doing when you're putting it all back together. That ring obviously has a little locating thing that little plastic knob goes into. Pump comes out. There is a fuel gauge float in there to be careful of as well, and there is a rubber O-ring up in the top there, so just make sure that doesn't disappear. Mine was actually stuck to the tank when I first took it off. I might just leave it where it is for now. Now first things first, take a photo of the wiring here so you know which wires go where when you plug it all back in. I've just connected these loosely for now for the video, but they will be a fair bit tougher to pull off when you go to do it. Just get those out of the way. Then basically we just need to unclip this bottom section away from the top section there. You've got 4 clips, 2 on either side. I recommend starting with this one right here. Okay, that one you can easily do with your fingers. So, and I just, with my thumb, I'm pushing that out so that it stays unlatched. And then it's probably easier to grab a screwdriver to do this one. Keep pressure on that, it will stay out. So those 2 are now unlatched. Just keep pushing on that, and then do these other 2 with your fingers. Just want to be real gentle with these. I don't know how strong plastic is when it's been submerged in fuel for a couple of years, but yeah, we'll just now pull that out. And then there's your fuel filter right there. So there's this little plastic flap thing comes off. I don't know what the importance of that is, but that aside for now. And then the filter itself just pops off with a little bit of force. You're going to make sure you hold the pump motor in there. It does take a little bit of wrestling to get that thing off, but yeah, there's your filter. So yeah, look, to be honest guys, I'm a little bit dubious about whether or not this is actually going to fix the problem, but we'll see. Yeah, just got to wait for the filter to rock up now. Okay, this shit has finally turned up. Can you guess what day it is for this express post delivery, supposedly next business day? It's Wednesday, so posted Friday. That's 4 business days Australia Post. Pretty shit. Anyway, let's have a look and see if this filter fits. Alright, so the Bike Whisperer sent me a couple of spark plugs as well. And this is what the fuel filters look like. Now they aren't exactly the same. So pretty close, but obviously this one is a little taller, which could be a problem, and I'll explain why. Main question is, does it actually fit onto the pump? Fits, a good fit on there, and it's got a little groove there to locate it. Not really sure if I'm meant to put this thing back on or not. Alright, so these filters that Stu sent me, they do fit onto the pump, but there is a small issue with them. As I mentioned, the height of them, they're slightly shorter than the stock ones. Now, they are actually for, as you can see, a Quantum aftermarket fuel pump for these bikes, and pretty sure the Quantum fuel pump fits a whole bunch of bikes, Yamaha road bikes, the MT-07 of course. So yeah, these filters are made for that aftermarket pump, so yeah, they're not as tall. So what can happen is, because that filter's not as tall, the actual pump motor can drop down and lose the seal up on the top with that O-ring. So basically you need to find some way to keep that motor up in there. I'll put a link up here to some guys with an MT-07. They had a similar problem and they actually tie wired the motor in there into the housing. Whether or not that's a good idea, I don't know. So anyway, here is the part number for this aftermarket filter, guys. They are cheap, they're about 15 bucks each. You can actually get ones that closely resemble the genuine ones. They might even be genuine. If you go onto basically eBay and search for MT-07 fuel filter or something like that, you'll find the ones with the longer stem things on them. They are a bit more expensive, but probably worth getting if you're sticking with the genuine fuel pump. What I ended up doing to keep the pump up in the housing was just dropping a angled piece of plastic into the bottom of the fuel pump housing so that the filter actually rested on top of that, and that yeah, that was enough to keep it up in there. It was just a little bit of nylon. Anyway, this was temporary. Keep watching, you'll see what happened. One hot tip for putting the fuel pump back together: take the smaller black O-ring out of the tube on the side here, stick it over the male part on the base of the housing, put a little bit of grease on that to ease it back in nicely, and that way it'll be in the right spot when you put it all back together. Pretty important, otherwise it can just push too far up into that tube. Anyway, guess we'll shove it all back together and see what happens. It's the moment of truth. I'm severely doubtful. Now, I don't want to sound too dramatic, Stuart, but your reputation may well be on the line right here. Oh man, please be fixed. I think she's warmed up pretty well, so I'll give her a bit of herbs. Oh, no good, no good. Still just tapering off the power there. Yeah, got to 7,000. Damn. Alright, so that's 4,000. Open up. Whoa! Going now? Okay, that's a bit weird. 4,000. Going to the red line, baby! Very good. Seems good. So guess what, guys, the day after I recorded that, I decided to go for a ride. Got out onto the open road, give it some gas, would not get past 6,000-7,000 RPM again. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? You're gonna laugh when you find out what it was. You might have noticed earlier in this video that I had the uni filter pre-filter back on the snorkel. Why that is because I went to go for a ride at one point and I noticed the funnel web pre-filter that I've had on there for a while now was totally filthy, and I didn't have time, or more likely I couldn't be bothered washing it at the time and then waiting for it to dry. So I whipped it off and put this back on. Didn't even think of it. Anyway, on this ride the other day, I pulled over after it started doing the same thing again. I pulled over to the side of the road and thought, okay, so it's not a fuel problem, maybe it's not getting enough air. Took that thing off and just threw it underneath the seat, and yeah, that fixed it. That's all it was. I couldn't believe it. It just, yeah, it felt like a totally different bike. Just rev straight to 11,000-12,000 RPM, power, more power all through the rev range. I'm not blaming the uni filter, it's my fault. Okay, so as you might know, I have cut a bit off the end of the snorkel here, just to make it easier to get this off to clean it back when I was using this one. And I also don't use the spring in it anymore because I found that was wearing through the foam. So I've actually shortened this one as well. So the thing is, it's got really thick foam. The foam in the end of it is about that thick. So obviously with it shoved on like that, it's trying to breathe fully through that thicker foam. I should have known this. I'm kicking myself now. I've been through all this and this is the problem. Anyway, I have put the the funnel web pre-filtered back on, as you can see, and it goes fine with that. So yeah, I'm happy that it's fixed for sure. I'm feeling like an idiot for not realizing this, but at the end of the day, now I know how to replace a fuel pump or fuel pump filter or whatever. I have actually put the old filter back in. I gave it a bit of a clean, but obviously it's not the problem anyway. It is the right height for that fuel pump. So yeah, the old fuel filter is back in, and the funnel web pre-filter is back in. And this was the problem. Again, not Unifilter's fault, my fault. Live and learn, guys, live and learn. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed my pain and suffering through this whole process, but as I said, it was a learning process, and that's always a good thing. So yeah, and I'm even better now at changing spark plugs on this beast. There you go. If your bike's not revving past 6,000-7,000 RPM, it could be not getting enough air. See you guys on the next video. Peace.